Hello there and welcome to my little arty corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and amongst other things I do art. I like art, I like drawing. I particularly like drawing with pens. And I also dabble in the realms of Zentangle and Zentangle patterns. And of course it's October, so that means it's Inktober. And this year, as I did last year, I'm doing the Inktober Tangles challenge, which is hosted on the 7F5R challenge Facebook group by 7F5R, 7 Forests, 5 Rivers. And we're on day 15. And day 15's pattern is Noom Repus from Zentangle Inc themselves. And I'm going to show you how to draw this and hopefully a couple of bit of variations and ideas. This was one that did vex me for quite a while, but again, it was seeing somebody draw it on a video. I'd seen it drawn on many videos and I can't remember who it was because it's a while ago. And suddenly I went, oh, that's how you do it. Because sometimes that works. A lot of the times though, sometimes it just, I say a lot of times, sometimes it just doesn't work until you get a person who does it in a way that makes sense. So hopefully this will make sense to you. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed. I appreciate that so very much. And if you haven't yet subscribed but you keep returning, please click that button. It doesn't cost you anything. I don't know why they use the term subscribe. It's more like it should be follow, because that's essentially what you are, but they use the word subscribe. Strange. YouTube, what can I say? If you enjoy the video, please give a thumbs up for it. It really does help in sharing my videos with others who may like what I'm doing. I got a selection of pens here because I was fertling through a box. I was looking for these. I thought I had more than one of these in black, but apparently I only have the one left. They're Uni Emot pens, which you can't see because I've got it upside down. And they have, apparently their ink is water resistant, maybe not waterproof. And they've got the tip on them. You can see it's a hard plastic tip, which apparently always stays fine. It's really durable. But I remembered I had them because I saw a set of vintage colours and they're lovely. I really like them, but I haven't tested them with water yet, but we may do that in this video. I got a Tombow Fudenosuke, a hard one. This is quite worn down, so it hasn't got a fine tip. This is a Kuretake Zig Mangaka. You can see, well, hopefully you can see, flexible nib. This one's quite a broadish nib when it's used. Again, it's a flexible nib. And I've got this zebra pen. I've got no idea what they're called, but they're flexible nib pens. But that nib looks exactly the same as on the Zig almost, but this is much finer, it's harder. The other one's softer. I'm going to use this one. So with no further ado, let's get on with Noom Repus. There we go. And there's a couple of steps to doing this. And I'm going to start by doing one that's basically in a kind of chain, because that's how it works. Actually, let's have a look at do this. Let's see if I can do this in a kind of border around here. So it starts with an on its side S. And then we start somewhere in the middle and we draw another S. And then another. We want these bits to come up, so you want quite a curvy S, not a flat S. So I may need to adjust these later on. And you do need to leave some space between these because that's required for part of this pattern. So I'm going to go here. Oh, this is going to be challenging for me because I want to go round here. I haven't done this before. Phew, it worked. So I've had to do a very strange S shape, but it will work quite happily going forward. I'm a bit closer to the edge here than I'd like to be, but that's okay. So I'm going round the corner there again, and I'm trusting that this will work out. I've actually got my head round Noom, which is a good thing. but I haven't done this variation of it, but it could be interesting. Oh, now this one I've got to go that way again, and then I'm going to have a very odd one here, but let's see how it works out. And I'm up close to the edge of this piece of paper, and then I think this one will be the last one, and I need to aim it for over here, so I'm going to have some very odd corners, but that's okay because I'll work with it. Okay, now the next bit of this is going to be interesting because I haven't left much space here for me on the outside. But essentially you go not from the top, but from a little way down. I aim for about halfway down this side, and we're just going to draw an arch that goes from there to about the same point on this side. And then we're going to go from that one over to this one. This is the one that's going to be interesting. I'm just going to bring that around, and again I'm going to have it going there. That worked. And we'll just do this all the way round this side. If they end up a little bit higher up or a little bit lower down, do not stress, because it works out in the end. And be bold. And remember, in the corners, we've got to go all the way round to this one. So don't get confused. Just trust the process and repeat. These are going to be very low outsides here. Yeah, I didn't think ahead, did I? Nope, not a chance. Should have drawn a pencil border on to work within. That would have been sensible. But the whole point of doing this is to learn. Not that I ever will, really. Okay, and then we're back to this one. And then I need to go around to here. And this one is going to have to go off the paper. Oops. There we go. Now then, on the inside, we're going to do exactly the same. We're going to start on this side of the S and go all the way around to about the same distance up. It's not critical if you don't get it exactly right. It's not an important thing. I mean, I've got mine right halfway along here. I'm sure it'll work out fine. That's me not paying attention to what I'm doing, thinking about what I need to say or how to say what I want to say. Oh, and thank you everybody for your kind wishes about me feeling well. I don't know what it was yesterday. I just wasn't tickety-boo, but later on in the day, after I'd had something to eat, I actually picked up and felt better. So, but I really didn't feel quite right in the morning. And I still wasn't quite, you know, there was something amiss yesterday, so. But I'm fine today. So, my fears of the dreaded C, COVID, were unfounded. Up to there. And then back to there. So that isn't quite it, but you can see that we're getting this kind of border. Now there's another step, well there's a couple of steps, but I tend to do them together because it makes sense to. We've got these pairs where these S's sort of like almost go over each other. This is where we need to join them with a wavy line like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top of the end of that wavy line and pull it back towards this S shape here and here. I think you can see what I've done, and I'll show you again, and I'll show it step by step. I'm just going to colour these in, and I'm making mine all big and bold because I can. So here I've got another pair of lines here, so I want to go from here and down. So I'm drawing an S shape that connects the end of these two lines. And then I'm just going to bring that over. And you can either leave it as it is, because it actually does look like we're creating a chain here, or you could put shadow on one side like that, so it looks like there's some thickness there. But for now I'm just going to, perhaps I'll colour all of these in on one side. So let me do all of these and we'll have a look at doing different ones. There's that S shape, and then we're going to create like a pointy arch on either side, and I'm just going to fill this in with black. The smaller the S shape you make, the smaller these black areas you'll have. As in, smaller as in not having these bits here extending as far as I have. And I've got one left here on this side to do. I'm going to do it just like that. Okay. This one's interesting here because I've got, this is why I avoided doing this one until I'd shown a few of these. Okay, we've got one here, but it's still the same thing. We're going up, down, around, and then I'm going to pop these in exactly the same. And then we back to these ones, which are easy enough to do. So the corners aren't really tricky, they look like they are, but you're going to do that S shape through them exactly the same. So let's do this. And I'll show you what I mean about making these gaps very small. See how small that line is there compared to what I've been doing? And you get these very small little spaces where one Noom seems to pass through another. It's all, say it's like a chain, a weird kind of chain, but it's like a chain. So this one's the same, so we're doing the same kind of S shape. And you can put more rounded corners on them if you like. So you can actually hook it over in an S shape if you want a, you know, proper S. So we get rounded ones. So if I start here, I can go along, around and join with that S shape. Show you again. So I'm going to start, instead of trying to join these together, I'm going to start here. I'm going to go to the end of it, over there and back. And we get this nice S shape. And we get rounded ones here instead of my others, which are a bit on the pointy side. So you have options as to how you do this. And I'm sure there are many other ways of doing this and of embellishing all of this. I said I've got my head around how you create this pattern. I'm not entirely sure I've got my head around variations of it, but we'll see what happens. It's a rather awkward line there. So I'm going back to my little pointy ones. So I'm going to make these very thin and pointy, just as a variation. And yet, I do this on pages like this because this will end up in my sketchbook. And for reference for the future, hopefully. So I hope you can see how I've done that. And then this is the very last one. Like so. And that essentially is Noom Repus, but there are things we can do. And one thing I wanted to do was to put an outside aura on, but I've got these falling off the edge of the paper as it is. But I think I'm going to do an inner aura, but before I do that, I'm just going to round some of these corners quickly. So you can see I'm putting weight into these corners just to connect them. I'll see how that... Well, you'll see what it looks like because I'm concentrating on each one of these rather than looking at the bigger picture at the moment. But you can work out if this is something you'd like to do or not. I like it because it feels that we're soldering or welding things together to get them to hold together. And I am going to do the same on the outside, because what you do in one place to create a pattern you do elsewhere. Okay. It's bonkers. I'm thinking, why did I do this? Because it's going to frustrate me that it's not, you know, really perfect. And I got bits hanging off the edge, as it were, and can't fit an aura in. But as I say, you live and learn. It is what it is. It's for a sketchbook. And yeah, I learnt my lesson from disappearing off the screen yesterday on a big piece of paper. So if I'm working on a smaller one, I can zoom in enough so you can see what I'm doing. And as long as I check every now and again that I'm still on the screen, which I usually am, because this is in the place I like to work at. This is a comfortable place for me to have my hands and my arms and so on. So it's quite natural for me to work here, so it's not going to drift off hugely. There. So that just polishes that off quite nicely. So a couple of things we can do. I am going to, apart from tidying these up, I'm going to use a finer pen. And I think I'm going to use, let's use this grey one, because it does really have quite a fine point. And I am just going to aura very simply around this. You know, I like to do this. If you've watched lots of my videos, I just feel that it separates this pattern from whatever else is going to happen elsewhere on this piece of paper. And maybe nothing's going to happen elsewhere. And yet, my lines are thicker and thinner, and I'm fine with that as well. This pen is softer than I thought it was initially, but it'll work. Okay, move that back up. I did pull it towards me. I'm nearly done. Trying to keep the distance pretty much the same from section to section. But if it's not, I'm not going to stress about it. And I am just going to add that little bit of rounding here. Now then, I'm not going to do it all. Well, I will with this. But round the outside, I'm going to do something to just fill that space in. Okay, nearly done. I do try not to move my paper too much, and I'm used to moving my hand around as I'm drawing, so I'm happy with that. Now then, I've got a lot of white space on the outside, so what I want is a piece of scrap paper, and I have some. That'll do. And then what I want to do around the outside here, I'm going to use pens that have got really tight tops. This Emote pen. And I'm going to just start putting some lines in here, fairly straight, but just to give some kind of feeling that there's an edge here. You could colour it in with black or another colour, or fill it in with a pattern like tipple or print on, or any other you fancy doing. I know it's your work. I'm going to stop there because there's a natural stop, And I'm just going to come around the corner a bit. And even though I didn't put an aura here, this works because I'm being consistent about my background. So that's an option to do here. And I'm just going to fill a bit of this in. I'm doing this really quickly. I'm not really making much of an effort to be neat and tidy here. So it's sketchbook work. And sketchbooks are incredibly freeing when you use them as a sketchbook. Not as, you know, you can have finished work in there, work you're proud of, but the real value of a sketchbook is a safe place to try things out, or just to draw for pleasure without any worry about perfection or making everything exactly perfect. So here I am doing exactly that. This is for my sketchbook. If I make mistakes, I make mistakes. But hopefully I'll remember what they were, and then I can just return to my sketchbook or make a note on the back of this, so that when I do fix it into my sketchbook, then I'll know what I need to remember, and I can make a note of it neatly in my sketchbook once this has been glued in, or however I'm going to put it in. So that's just a simple way, and it lifts the whole thing up, doesn't it? Just something simple like that. You could use graphite, as I say, you could use anything. Okay, now then, I do want to add an embellishment or two into these. It's lovely as it is, but you know me, I've got a fiddle. And this could be an interesting one. You can see these lines here are original S's. I want to aura them. But I don't want to aura them from the corner here. I want to aura them partly along. So I want to, what's it they say in Zentangle? Take off and then eventually land. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm tracing the line of that S just a little bit. And then I'm taking off, creating an aura, and then I'm going to bring it back so it joins that. It may not be perfect, but I'm fine with that. So like that, just one aura would work. Actually, one aura would. I like the one aura. But I'm going to be consistent about which side I put it on. But I'm going to be consistent as well in that I started with 2 auras. So I'm going to continue with 2. And they're not perfect. Far from it. But I'm just going to turn my paper here because that's quite a big sweep to get around in one go. As will this one be. For some reason I could do that one better. It's best not to question why. We move that out of the way because that's moving around as well, and that's meaning that I could end up disappearing out of the frame. If you're new here, you may not have seen what I'm drawing on, this background. It's actually a drawing board. I like a hard surface to draw on, and I like something that is quite sturdy, something that's portable as well, so I could take this with me if I decide to go out anywhere drawing and sketching, so I can rest my sketchbooks or paper on this. And I was sat there one day and I thought, oh, I think I'll draw on this. It's boring. It's really a very uninteresting item. It's really dull in colour and it's not the nicest brown. You can see some of the brown, you know, showing through in places here where there's no, oh, actually that's white. But yeah, you can see it here perhaps. It's pretty mucky kind of brown. And so I thought, right, okay. So I started drawing on it with a Fudenasuki pen. And then I got some alcohol markers out and a white pen, and I just filled it all. I worked on it over a few days, and when I'd done, I'd ordered some satin varnish, spray varnish from Clear Coat, I think it is. So it's got a bit of a shine to it, but it's not super glossy, but it's really tough and hard wearing. So I sprayed a good layer on it. It took a couple of weeks to properly cure because it had turned quite chilly in its way, and it's better in warmer weather. And then I had the genius idea of putting it in my window on a sunny day, and voila, within not a lot of time it had cured. So I now have a toughly coated, I don't even know if that's actually a word, but I've got a drawing board that's rather pretty on one side. The other side I haven't done anything with yet. It's on my list of things to do. And it's rather nice as a background for my videos. Some may say it's a bit too busy, but I used Arteza alcohol markers. I think I used a couple of Oh Hoo Hoo for the reds. The reds are a really funny bunch of colours when it comes to alcohol markers. They're either super saturated in colour or very pale. So that's just helped to bring out something extra in this. And I was trying to work out how I can aura these here earlier. And I think you do it in the same kind of way, where you start at the bottom in the corner and have them appearing out. So I don't know if you can see that. I'm starting right in the corner, I'm coming out around in an aura, and then I'm going back to that corner. I'll start at this one, I'll go up around and down. I didn't go to the corner because that would have created quite a wide aura on this side, and I didn't want that. When I watch Zentangle videos, they often say aura is your friend. And really, it is. It's helping to pick out the features of this lovely pattern, which looks terribly complicated. And some of you are going to say it is, it's very complicated. But hopefully, you'll get the idea as I break it down. That makes a difference. It really does help to bring out that looping and everything else. Now, part of me wants to add pattern to this, but part of me doesn't. So I'm going to leave it exactly as it is at the moment. I'm not going to add colour to everything here, because to be honest with you, that would be a bit silly. I'd be here forever. But if you watch me, I much prefer to use colour to add shadow and highlight than I do graphite and so on. I much prefer to add things digitally than I do with traditional media, to be honest, but I can record my screen, but it's really irritating because I'm forever twisting and turning things. It irritates me at times. Well, it does when I'm recording, because I'm trying to keep everything as straight as I can so you can see what I'm doing, but you don't get my hand in the way, that's for sure, because you can see what's happening. But I do like to add colour to my traditionally drawn work. And here's the thing, it's called Tradigital. Which I only found out recently, which amuses me. That there's actually a name for adding the colouring pen drawings digitally. Again, I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is definitely what I enjoy doing. And not just enjoy, it's what I seem to be able to do better with colour that way, because I can make some really appalling colour choices. You may not agree, but sometimes I seriously wonder what on earth I was thinking. So there we go, we've got this. Now all of this has taken me about half an hour. So if I'm going to finish that, I might as well do all of this. Now I know I draw very quickly, and that's because this is my job and I've been involved in drawing and art. Well, it's probably all my life in terms of scientific drawings and illustrations and so on. But I really only came into my artistic self just before I was 40, or around my 40s. Just before I was 40, which is nearly 20 years ago now. Well, it is 20 years ago, more or less. And I have constantly drawn ever since. And I'm comfortable enough to work directly in pen. I do use pencil if I'm doing something where I need to overlap and or I need some guidelines. I'll happily use a pencil. I don't see anything wrong with it. But I much prefer to work in pen. And I must admit, although I do draw things or ink things in digitally, especially for the colouring books I do, because that means that it's a lot easier for me to make adjustments or revisions as requested, then I do prefer to draw on paper though. But it's only because it's a lot easier for me to make some changes. So let's have a look at this. Oh, I've still got my colours out from my last video. I'm going to use those because they are my go-to colours. They are my favourites. Right, pencil sharpener, because I didn't check the pencil sharpening needs. That one needed a touch. That one's okay. This one will need just a little touch. And this one will as well. Not keen on this pencil sharpener. I'm going to have to find a different one. Okay, let's go for... I've got iron blue here. And I'm going to put my darkest colour along the bottoms of this, around here, but in the corners. So I've decided that the outside edges and the corners are going to be the darkest. I may want to put some shadow underneath here, but we'll see. And here I have my water brush. I actually love these. Once I can get the water coming, there we are, we've got some. Sometimes I press a bit too hard and I get too much water coming out. That irritates me. But I love them for the convenience and for the constant flow of water. I'm not constantly dipping my brush back and forth into a jar of water. Things like that can irritate me. So let's have a look at this and see how this looks. I'm not going to get a perfect finish on this, it is what it is, but I can play or have a look at how colour in different places affects that. So instantly we're beginning to get this lovely kind of dimensionality, volume happening here. Oh, I've picked up the iron green. Oh, well, we're going to have one side blue, one side green by the looks of it on this one. I was going to do this actually. Sort of like do some that were monochrome and then some that had two different colours on, or another colour that picks the details out, because that's also something that's a possibility. Gone over into that space there just a little, but I'm fine about that. It's sketchbook work, and this paper isn't necessarily the best for doing this on. It is mixed media paper, it is sized, Sized means it's got, I think it's gum arabic in it, so it holds up a bit better to water than your average sketchbook paper, but it's still not brilliant. That actually works quite nicely. It's got that feeling of having a, having a dome coming up here, which is quite fun. Okay, let's have a look at the one next door. Let me see if I can get the blue. It's iron green, iron blue. And let's do one that's all in blue. Now I know what I'm doing, I can quickly lay the colour down. I've got an idea of how much colour I want, most probably more than I put down for this one, because I'd really like some intense shadows where these overlap around the edges and so on, because that will really help to bring the contrast that you need. It's the high contrast. And I'm all about high contrast. If you've ever seen any of my digital colouring, you'll know what I mean. I really go for it. I can be quite timid at first, and then suddenly it'll click into place what I want to do, and off I go. And of course, being timid to begin with is always a good thing, because you can always add colour. You can't take it away easily. It depends on what medium you're using. But with Inktense pencils, which is what I'm using here, they're permanent once they've dried. So it's always best to be a bit cautious until you work out, actually that's the intensity I want. And with this, if they vary from each Noom to the next, because I don't know what each ones of these are called, then there must be Nooms, then they vary. And there's nothing I can do about that. Well, I can. But, oh gosh, we're doing a green one here now. That's okay, we'll do that. The other thing I can do is, once I've added colour to these, I can actually use a pen to add pattern if I wish, or contour lines if I really want to bring out that feeling of dimension, and of course a gel pen. A white gel pen to add, well, I like dots for highlights, but you could put lines in there like contour lines as well. So we've got one all blue, one half blue, half green, and one all green. Be fine. It will actually. There we go. So that's quite nice. So I'm going to go back to this first one, and here for these bands I'm going to do the lower one in gold. I didn't clean my brush off properly, so we got some green in there, so it's a green gold. Okay, we'll go to this one and see if I can get a less green gold here. Clean it off of my hands. That's a bit better. So I've got that lovely golden colour there, and I'll do the same on this one. So I'm going to do gold there. I've put gold all the way along there. It's not a problem, because as long as it's wet, you can move the colour around a fair bit. It'll stick to the paper quite quickly. And then what I'm going to do for the other side, I'm going to use the red, just for some variation. Saves me rattling through my pot of Inktense for you, or reaching across for it. The red and the golden colour are really nice together, and I think they work nicely with the blues and the greens, as the yellow is almost a complementary colour of blue. It's technically a split complementary. Orange is blue is complementary colour. That's the colour that's opposite it on the colour wheel. And when you put orange and blue together, certain tones of orange and blue, they almost like they vibrate against each other. They make each other look a lot brighter. And I like that. But here it's quite nice because, again, you've got red that's a darker colour. So it's like changing that kind of dimension that's going on. And around these here, I'm going to do these in gold because I think that would look really nice here. So I really do need a slightly sharper pencil than I've got, but it'll be fine. Because if it spills out into the green, it spills out into the green. I could have found a marker pen of some kind or a fine liner pen, but this will work just fine and dandy as it is. So again, I'm working on putting the colour at each end of these particular shapes, keeping those the darkest and blending them to give a lighter spot in the centre. Then if I just do this one, I think it goes all the way over there. It's a long one, that one. You can start to see. So that's really quite nice. I like that. I do actually. I've just realised that I haven't actually filled in this bit of this particular... Oh, I've used... I'm sure that said blue. I'm going mad. Because this touches this here, so this section here is part of this one. Plenty of blue there. So let's have a look at a red one. Because I think this could be quite fun. Having different colours, you know. Of them joining together. So let's have a quick look. Just put a bit of colour in the areas around these inner holes, but depending on what colour whatever colour I choose, they'll disappear into that colour, kind of. Again, I'm not going to worry, it's a sketchbook page. If this was a piece of artwork that was going to be for sale or for reproduction or whatever, I'd be a lot fussier about it. You can see different colours work beautifully. And let's just do one for the golden colour, just because we can. Right, over here is part of the gold as well, I think. Here is definitely as well. Strange shape because this goes off the page. But it is what it is, and you just work with it the best you can. And if you don't tell somebody you've made a mistake, they most probably won't even notice if you've gone, oops, that should have been this colour. I think I've got that right though. So even the bright gold works. And I could keep going around with different colours and doing different things. And obviously for these, I wouldn't use red in these central bits or here. I'd use different colours, but I've got blues and greens for doing that, or just pure all gold would be fine. But it's lovely. I really enjoy this. Now then, I did say I was going to have a look at a couple of variations. I think I've got enough time. Yeah, so look, that's only taken me about 15 minutes. So I'm going to have a slurp of cold coffee, not coffee, tea. It's wet. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some nooms here. So I'm going to go diagonally across. So it's a refresher tangle. See if you've been paying attention. I'm only joking. So I've connected these just across here at the ends. And then you'll remember that we start about halfway along this S shape and we're going over to the next one along. Not backwards, because that's you could go back, you could go that way. But I'm going to go this way. Actually, it doesn't matter, does it? Because you're connecting one point to another. So whichever way you find easiest to do this. And that one there just sort of like goes underneath there. So with this one, we're going to start about halfway along and go over to about halfway. And like so, and like so, and like so, and like so. It'll go off there, and this one will go there, and then this one will go there too. So we've got nooms going along here. So I'm going to draw all the S shapes in. I'm going to do it in a different way this time, just in case you prefer to draw all the S shapes in. It's a lot easier to work this in a chain, it really is. Okay, and then we just need to create these little spaces here, and I'll leave these ones open this time. So we've got that as a simple kind of variation. Okay, now what I'm going to do is at the top of these, I'm going to put a semicircle or a little arch, or an upside down U, depending on what you prefer to call it or think of it as, because everybody can draw a letter U or this kind of shape. Okay, so we've got part of one there, and then I'm going to connect them to create an aura. So instead of having the aura the same shape as the chain of nooms, I'm adding a little bit of variation there. And I will re-aura this in a moment. So it's a bit like setting up a very organised diva dance in some way. You'll see what I mean. Because I want to pop something here, as if we're going over this black bit. Now you could put this bit in first if you wanted to, and you could actually put multiples of them in if you wanted to around the edge and just aura over them. But I'm just getting mine set up like this, and then I'm going to do a larger, a wider aura around these. So I'm doing mine as I go along, but you could aura around these in the same way we started the first one. So you choose the distance away from the space you want, and then you just connect them in this kind of fashion. And it works either way you do it, just like that. So we get the same effect. And again, I could put like a little lump there, but I think I'll leave as it is. And I could go crazy and add some little black lumps here and here, but I think I'm just going to put another narrow aura around it. Now, you could do absolutely anything you like here. I just thought these little sort of like moony kind of shapes would go with this, because Noom is moon backwards. And if I remember it rightly, Noom Repus is supermoon backwards, which is how it got its name. There we go. I've got this space in between, and do you know what I'm going to do in that? This wider aura here, I'm just going to start by joining the corners together to give me a guide for where my lines are going to go. Now this would work exactly as it is. They call it coffering in Zentangle. I'm just joining the corners of these two auras here. And it automatically adds some kind of dimension. But part of me wants to echo or wants to use this very simple filling pattern here. And our lines need to go in different angles around this so that we follow the curve of the line. So here, these are going to be very close together on this smaller arc and further away there. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you don't want to do lines, by all means, you can fill it in with any other pattern or just with colour. But I find by putting these lines in from corner to corner to start with, it's a lot easier to organise how you fill these spaces up with lines. Did you see what I just did then? I put a line down the centre because that would be the straight up and down, and the others need to be, you know, moving their angle in a different way. You'll see what I mean, hopefully. Let me just bring that over. So here, just getting them so they join together like this. This is going to be a test if I'm going to add colour to this for this Emot pen. So that adds that darkness, the ink, that sets that backwards and lifts this Noom off. So I could instead fill these with, perhaps some of these with, I'm going to do some perks because I just like perk. Some little round things. And even round here, I'm going to put the biggest one in the centre of the space and just fill it in up to that line. And just trust then. But I don't trust because I know that the others will join together and make the line disappear. So here I'd have one there and perhaps one here, and I'm just filling in the little gaps around them just to give some darkness there. So something like this would work. So there's my biggest one in the middle, and I'm just squashing others into the space or part of them in, and that line in between them all just seems to disappear because we create that pattern there. So that's a different kind of thing to do, and it gives more of a dimensionality. It seems to not just lift this Noom Repus up, but it seems to bulge these out and, you know, give them more dimension as well. So just squishing these balls in. Putting the first one in the centre of a section, and then I'm just kind of squashing them in one behind each other. If I can't get a full one in, that's okay, I'll get a part of a one in, so I know that overall it will look fine. And you will know that now because I've shown you it will. And the lines you put in as that guide really do just disappear. and that's fun. There we go. Nearly done. I'm not actually going to, well, no, I'm not going to add any colour or shadow to this because I do it pretty much in the same way that I did these other ones here, to be honest. So, see, I haven't added anything to these or to the centre, but I could do. So on this side, I'm going to put a spiral going to the left, and on this side, I'm going to have one on that side that spins off in the other direction. So how do I know which way to go? Well, here I traced along this line, and about halfway along I put the spiral in. Here I traced along this line and put the spiral in. So let's have a look. So I'm going to do them all the same way. So on the bottom I'm going to do them all like this, and then I'm going to go back in and add the other side, hopefully not overlapping it. So I need to start at this end, come back, and then just finish that. Here it'll be around here. It's not critical if it's not exactly in the middle, it doesn't matter. Here, and then I need one on this side here, and I do need to put these other lines in because that's part of the aura ring process. Oops, that one went way too far. Okay, so on the top side here I've done one, and it goes from the right hand side. So right hand side down to around here, round, up, and that way, complete it. So around about the same place, it doesn't have to be exact, back on itself, and then we'll complete that aura that way. Here, I'm going to have to move it away from that one, because I put this one just that little bit too far that way, but it'll be fine. Here we're going to go, oh, and I've just realised, have you noticed what I did with that last one? Started from the wrong side, didn't I? It's fine. It's an aberration. They're growing. It's muka, isn't it? Variation on a muka. So I'm just going to add some line weighting on these to the left of them, in keeping with that hefty one there, because I really did make a right mess, but they'll be fine. So we have that happening here. Some more things to colour in. And of course this is called Noom Repus. So which way do I want this? I think I like it this way, so I'll just write the name in. Let me find my other pen. So it's day 15 and it's Noom. I'll put it in brackets, Repus, because I think it's lost its Repus bit in time. As things do. So, on the other thing, I'm going to tuck my little initials away there. So that's Noom Repus. A couple of variations, a couple of ways of doing things, suggestions, but explore and experiment with yourselves. Don't feel that you don't have creativity. You do. It's just that you've made yourself believe you haven't, or other people have made you believe that. We're all human beings, and to be human is to be creative. Sometimes, though, it takes time to find your confidence in drawing, and having a go at things for yourself comes in time. So don't ever think you won't be able to. As I said earlier in the video, I've been drawing all my life, but involved in art for 20 odd years really now. And you gain that confidence and that ability to change things. I know that when I started looking at Zentangle patterns, I had this belief they always had to be exactly as they were. And eventually I've worked out, no, they're not. I can actually adapt them and change them as I wish. So enjoy this pattern, and hopefully I'll see you again in my next video. It's not likely to be tomorrow, so you might have a bonus of 2 on Monday, or two patterns in one. I'll see how I get on tomorrow. So until then, you take care, look after yourselves, and find time to be creative. Don't be hard on yourselves. Get a sketchbook, use it. It's a place to explore and experiment and try things out, and to give yourself permission to make mistakes, which actually may not be mistakes, but maybe your form of creativity. Who knows? Some of my variations have come from my inverted commas mistakes, happy accidents, creative opportunities, they can be called as well, and they all work. So until then, ta-ta, take care, bye, hoil.